have a special guest on the program today, the person who was supposed to be guest number one on the podcast, the person who founded Desert Rat Real Estate, one of the greatest friends. Oh, he hates compliments. Alex Felice.
What up?
What's
I do
going
hate
on?
compliments. Was I supposed to be guest number one?
You were supposed to be guest number one. The time that you were in, that was going to be the very first podcast.
Save the best for first.
Yes, save the best for first. Man, so what I want to start off with is just say, how did you get into real estate? You're a late bloomer.
I am a late bloomer in life. I got into real estate because real estate was depressed in 2014, and that's when I got my life together. And I needed something that made money. And so I looked around at the investing possibilities, and, you know, we were in a foreclosure boom. Mm-hmm. So everything was underpriced. So I went on a, you know, what felt like a buying spree. In retrospect, I should have bought a lot more, such as life. But that was it. I was like, I need something. Actually, the funny version is this. I wanted something. I had no skills. I had no money. I had mediocre credit. I wanted cash flow, not equity. Mm-hmm. Like, I didn't want to buy the stock market. I wanted to buy something that was going to pay me every month. I wanted it to be passive, right? I didn't want a job, no employees, right?
Yes, because you are lazy.
Because I'm lazy. I wanted something that was going to kick off cash flow every month that I wasn't going to have to do any work to. So rental real estate, here we go.
How many did you buy out there in Fayetteville?
9.
9 houses in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
How did you even accomplish that? Like
the first one in 2014 was like a test. In 2014, you could go on the MLS, and I bought a house for $54,000. That was 1,800 square foot, and I moved into it with an FHA loan, put 3% down, so it ended up being like $3,000. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, let's just see if this works. And it was low risk because I moved in it. And so then I lived in it, and I did a little rehab on the house, new floors, you know, tightened some things up, put a 6-foot fence around the house, and yada, yada. And like 18 months later, I went to a bank, and I was like, what's this thing worth? Can I refinance? I forget what I was doing. Can I get a lower rate, whatever the case? And the bank said, yeah, house is worth 115. And so I basically made, what was that, 70, 80 grand in 18 months. Now, I was perpetually broke. So even when I bought the house, I only had like 10 grand to my name, which is the most money I'd ever had. So to be able to make 70 grand in 18 months was preposterous to me. And that's when I was like, oh, real estate is easy.
Did you have a job then?
Yeah, I was working what was I doing in 2014? I had just started working at the bank. I had my first bank job. Low level, like opening accounts at a regional local community bank, and making 40 grand a year.
How did you scale that out to 9 properties?
Yeah, so 2014, so I had, like I said, 10, 15 grand in my name. I refinanced that property. I kept the rate the same. Mm-hmm. And no, I take that back. I dropped the rate, but I kept the payment the same. And so what I did was I took out whatever amount of money they gave me that would keep the payment the same while dropping the rate. So it ended up being like 20 grand. And so,
pretty good. Okay,
so 18 months. So I started with like what I said, 15, put 3.5 down on that property. 18 months later, I saved a bunch because I was just in mad sacrifice mode. I stacked away cash like it was the most important thing. So I stacked away cash. I refinanced that property, got 20 grand out. And then 2016 came along, and I had like $70,000. So I bought a property for 40. I put 30 into it. I went all in. I had $600 left in the account. Mm-hmm. And I rehabbed a property. It took like 6 months, and I went to the bank, and I was like, what's this thing worth? Like I said, I had 70 in it. They said, it's worth 103. We'll give you a 75% loan. I didn't take out the 75%. I took a little less I took whatever I had in it. I didn't take any additional capital out. So I took out the 70 grand, and I said, now I have this property. It's got 30 grand of equity. It cash flows whatever it was, $200-300 a month. And I had the 70 grand again. So I just recycled that basically 7 more times.
Wow. And then what made you move out to Vegas?
Growth. Fayetteville doesn't grow. There's no growth. So I wanted to be around opportunity. I wanted to be around more people. I wanted to be around sunshine. And I've been to Vegas a lot of times in my life. I love it. I'm a hyper extrovert. I love to party. I love lights, excitement, music. And look, there's only 2 reasons why anybody moves to Las Vegas. It's either ambition or degeneracy. Mm-hmm. There's no reason. You don't come here to start like a humble family.
So for you, it's the degeneracy.
It was both.
Yeah.
It was both. So I came out to Las Vegas, and then that was in 2017. I ended up buying 3 houses, long distance. In 2018, I bought another 3, and then 2019, I bought 1. And that's when I started switching to multifamily.
And when did you buy the first one in Vegas?
What do you mean? First what?
Because you bought the...
Yeah, I bought a house in Vegas in 2017. Wish I never sold it. Biggest mistake. Biggest mistake. I paid $223. That house is probably worth $480, $490 now.
I mean, you chose a great realtor to sell for you. You
Yeah,
got top value.
Yeah. No, I mean, we made some
fantastic.
money, but life is long and weird, and had some personal stuff, and had to exit, that property and a relationship.
So now I want to talk about how I met you. You spoke at the Outback. Was that before or after you spoke on Bigger Pockets? You had a Bigger Pockets episode.
I was on a panel. Is that what it was? It was like a panel that they asked me to speak at.
Fuck, I don't know. I think you had your own thing for a bit. Maybe it was a panel, but I think you had your own 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something.
I remember I dominate conversation. So I remember being up there talking, but it was like a panel of some sort. I'm not sure what John asked me to speak about, and I don't remember when or why or what it was about, or if it was before or after the Bigger Pockets episode.
It was about your burst strategy. It was about you bought the houses, you fixed them up, and then you refinance them and then repeat.
Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. It's so easy. It's harder to do it now because you can't buy the properties discounted.
Real estate is easy.
Real estate is incredibly easy.
And you can buy them discounted, by the way.
Real estate is simple. It is easy. The problem that's actually hard is people's emotional impulse control. Like, they buy deals because they just want to buy deals, and they're like, it'll only go up. But the reality is, that's not really, that makes real estate much harder.
I believe the famous words or last words of it was either Open Door or one of those iBuyers who lost like $600 million in a quarter was real estate is easy, people are hard, which is true. Buying things for less, selling it for higher, that's super easy. Why they lost $600 million is the people problem.
Yeah, I don't know the details of that. I think real estate is in a very unique moment right now compared to at least like the last 20 years. The dynamics of interest rates, supply and demand, and how we've dealt with the subsidy in the last 10 years has made it every paradigm that we go through is unique. Everybody likes to say it's cyclical, and it is, but it's not the cycles are not that simple. So we're in a really unique moment right now, and I think people are all trying to figure it out.
It doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
It doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. We are definitely in an interesting moment because the rates were so low for so long.
Yeah.
And now they came up so fast, and people are doing this thing where they're like, yeah, rates will drop again soon. And, maybe they will.
That's what the bet is.
That's what the bet is. But also,
but what if it doesn't?
Right? People all said that real estate only was going to go up in 2006, and it didn't. So I think there's a case that real estate, Federal Reserve rates could stay up as they are for 10 years. I think it's very likely. People
way underestimate how sticky inflation is and how long it is to tackle that problem. Long the tail end effects are.
There's an old saying, the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. And so this idea that you're like, oh, I'll just buy stuff and I'll wait it out because the rates will drop in a year or two. It's like, maybe not. I think it's irresponsible to, this is why like real estate is simple, buy low, sell high. You don't know when it's low and you don't know when it's high. And I think the idea that it's going to be higher in the next, I think real estate will continue to go up actually just slowly, but I do not think it will drop. But I think the transaction volume will drop.
It has.
And I think it'll stay low. I think it's going to crunch.
Yeah. If I show you, I have all the Las Vegas stats, the ones that you can't get from normal online. I mean, sales are down. Yeah. And I own 1/8 of Signature Real Estate Group Utah, but Signature Real Estate Group is 100% brokerage. So we don't care how much you're selling it for. People are still selling for really high prices. We care how much volume you're doing. There's not the volume there. Yeah, we're going to be in a stagflationary environment where the inflation continues, but, largely the economy stagnates. Yeah. And I do think that there's a case to be made that will last another, that might last a decade. Say we're a year and a half into it. Hopefully. I don't know. Don't care. Don't need to know. Don't want to guess. Historically, every single time that it's hit 3.5% unemployment rate or lower, within the next year, we've had a recession. Every single time. Yeah, recession's another one of those words where, it is a politicized, contextually, that word has a lot of baggage. Well, what do you think of them changing the definition this last go around from 2 consecutive quarters? We had to negative consecutive quarters, and then they changed the definition on us.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of my point about I don't care what the definition is. I care about what I care really about is consumer confidence. That's what that to me is. Well, I'm certainly not a macroeconomist by data. I'm a macroeconomist by philosophy, but when people are confident, they'll spend money, and when they're not confident, I don't care what you look at 2009. I mean, the interest rates dropped, the stock market was underpriced, and people did not go rushing in. It took 5 to 7 years for them to come back. So, and now prices are up, rates are up, margins are down, and people are more, confident than ever to make less money. So I think consumer confidence is a more important metric than like, what's the definition of recession? I'm like, I don't care.
Well, that was the joke about this last one is fucking best recession ever. You go to the restaurant, all the restaurants are booked. You go to the hotel rooms, all the hotel rooms are high. Every casino on the strip is completely sold out.
Yeah.
But people aren't feeling good.
They're not feeling good. It's very hard to tell. Like, yeah, again, consumer confidence is a feeling. Feelings are important, hard to measure. Recession is a technical, 2 consecutive terms of GDP, quarters of GDP. But again, what does that mean? I mean, you say, oh, we had a recession and now we're fine. It's like,
it's not over yet. We're not out of the woods yet.
No. And the way I look at the economy is the inflationary problem is look, you go back 800 years, every major cataclysmic economic schism in a culture is due to debt and inflation. And we have the highest rates of debt and inflation than of all time, certainly of debt, by both percentage and total volume. Inflation is getting wrangled in a little bit, but it also begs the question is, are the powers that be, are they done being irresponsible? Will they print more money when the news cycle gets bad again? No. So this idea that the inflation is getting cured, I'm like, they can turn it on again at any moment.
They have a very short memory right now.
Well, everybody has a very short memory. They don't remember 2008.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the same way that when people, in sports, they have a saying, you're never as good as they say you are. You're never as bad as they say you are. LeBron James has one good game, and they're like, is he the greatest player to ever play? Is he the best? Is he still the best player in the NBA at 40 years old or whatever he is? Is he still the greatest? He has one bad game. Then they're like, is LeBron James washed? Is he over? Is it done with?
He peaked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now you have one good CDI. Why can't I think of it? But one good inflation report or jobs report, and everybody thinks, sweet, we conquered it. It's over. It's all done. Then you have one bad one, and everybody's like, oh my God, they're going to raise interest rates to the moon. And it's never in the middle. It's never, let's take a look at the trend of the last 3 months. Let's take the trend of the last 6 months. People are freaking out massively every new report that comes by.
Yeah, the best thing you can do for me, I'll start that over. The best thing, the most valuable thing that I do to understand macro and my predictions of the future is ignore all the news and read history. Because history is the philosophy of human behavior. It tells you how people are going to behave. And they always go bananas based on the news cycle and never the data. So the news cycle is, and the people that read the news cycle are always going to be wildly irrational, unpredictable, and just stupid.
Now, when things went crazy with COVID, you slowed down buying. Actually, you went to multifamily, so I'm going to get to that in a bit. But you haven't been buying single-family houses.
Well, in it's so interesting to me, speaking of short memories, in 2014 or 2011 and 12 to 2017, we had this foreclosure boom, and they did this very interesting thing during the Great Recession is they unloaded all these houses and they gave them to the banks. And then the banks unloaded them off their balance sheet over about a decade because they didn't want to take all the losses up front. And so in 2017, 18, and 19, the last of those foreclosures came off the balance sheets, and we went to basically a retail market. So you weren't buying anything underpriced anymore. Now, I think prices were going up, but that's not the same thing. So I looked at it and said, I'm not a buyer of retail investments. I am a buyer of underpriced investments.
I would highly debate that. I get underpriced. I make my whole entire living off of buying things underpriced. You have to look harder. They're not going to be on the MLS. I'm an investor. I'm a passive
I'm a lazy investor.
Yeah.
I'm an opportunist. I don't want to create a business. I don't want to create a wholesaling business. What I wanted was when the properties were on the MLS, I'm like, that's underpriced. I'll go for it. And I did buy some houses from wholesalers. But what I noticed it was people were bidding up properties, and I was like, they're not that good at deals anymore. Now, you're right. You can go try harder, and certainly now in this moment in the market in 2023, like there are no deals to be found. There are only deals to be created. You got to go get them, and and I'm not interested.
That's the perfect verbiage.
I'm not interested personally. It's what you have to do. I'll go travel the world with my camera. I don't care. But in 2019, before, I still wanted to do something, I said, okay, well, here's how I'll get my competitive advantage. I will work harder, but not for single family homes. I'll go get a multifamily, because if I'm going to work harder, I'm going to do it with a higher lever.
Yeah. So
I bought a 24 unit in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Dumpy deal, but it was good practice. It was $1 million deal. It was way more than I'd ever purchased, and that went okay.
I mean, let's not brush over it. That's a big fucking thing. There's not a lot of people out there who own an apartment building. So like, how did you get into an apartment building? What made you make that choice? And then what was the month that you got in?
Yeah, I got in it's like June or July. We closed June or July of 2019. So well before COVID. I was still living in Las Vegas. I had a blog called Broke as a Choice, and I was just writing on there and got a little following and had helped some people buy houses. And a guy comes up to me from my website, and people started asking me to help them buy houses. So I did some of that. And a guy says, hey, I got this property. I'd love to buy multifamily. I know you had talked about in your blog about wanting to buy multifamily. So like, what about this one? You want to buy this together? And so we did. So I went on the internet, and I was like, anyone want to invest? So we raised $360,000 from investors, strangers off the internet, and put an offer in, put 50 grand down, and took it down. And it was hard and stressful. We made a lot of mistakes. And yeah, it was easy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard, but it was easy.
And that's a big deal. What was the purchase price of the deal?
1 million even.
1 million even?
Mm-hmm.
What did you exit for?
1.5.
1.5.
1.475. Like we ended up closing just at like 21 months later.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, we got to I paid my investors, the total return came out to, like the IRR came out to like 49.9, like right at 50%.
Yeah.
But the property wasn't making any money.
But for anybody, I mean, why did the next person buy it? Because they got like 2.8% interest rate?
No, they paid a higher rate because they bought it at 2021. So they paid 50% more than me at a higher rate. And I wasn't making money. So that's how I know motherfuckers are stupid.
Yeah.
They're not, that's what I'm saying. Like there's a lot of people that are not making money right now.
But so you end up buying another apartment building.
Yeah. So it's a little staggered. 2019, I bought that property. 2020, late 2020.
Actually, wait. So why wasn't it making money?
Have you ever heard of a C class property?
Yeah.
You ever heard of a C minus?
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever heard of a D class property?
Yeah, it's my grades in school.
Yeah. In multifamily, nobody buys a D class property. They only buy a C minus.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. Here's the mistake I made. We undercapitalized the front end. So what happened was I couldn't afford to kick anybody out because we didn't have a lot of cash. And then even if I did kick them out, I couldn't afford to rehab the properties. So then because the property was so, it was such a dog, it wasn't really cash flowing. So I just got in this crunch.
When you're undercapitalized, you make poor decisions because money's too much of an issue.
I couldn't make any decisions. I was just trying to gasp for air every time I could. And it was always something with that property. And people wouldn't move in because it was a dog. So I couldn't get good tenants in there to like turn it around.
People talk shit about my early flips of like using laminate or painting cabinets. I didn't have the money for those bigger rehabs.
Yeah.
I used everything I had. And so I'm with it. There was
undercapitalization, the number one problem that most small businesses have, and I knew it, and then the same mistake that I made. And I'm thankful that I got out of it. The market saved me, but never again.
So what was the next multifamily that you bought?
Yeah, the next one, I was hanging out with a friend of mine named Matt Faircloth at a 336 unit in Winston-Salem, and I was just hanging out with him doing some video content. And his broker was there, and I said to him, hey, I knew I knew a lot more by then. So I was like, okay, I have to have a narrow buy box. I said, I need a 40 to 80 unit C class in Fayetteville, no 1-bedroom apartments. That was the kiss of death. right? Who lives in a 1-bedroom apartment for $600 a month? Nobody that's doing good in life. I'm sorry to say.
And even if they are, they're just going to leave in like 6 more months. Right?
Yeah. Best case scenario, you have a young kid, young guy or gal who's doing well. And they're like, okay, I'm going to go make something of myself and make more money. I don't want a $600, $500 apartment. I'll pay $1,000 and get a nice place with a pool and amenities. Or they'll get married and have a family. So if you're 42 years old and you're spending $600 a month on an apartment, and it's a single family, it's like, what are you doing? Yeah. So I said, I knew what my buy box was. And the guy just happened. He's like, yeah, I got a property coming up. It's $3.2 million. And they're kind of struggling with COVID. So maybe you can negotiate, because it was like August or July of 2020. And so, yeah, got the financials and started digging. I was very scared to do it. It was $3.2 million. I was going to have to raise $1.5 million, way more than I thought I could do. And went back and forth with it, brought on a partner that had a lot more experience than me. Didn't actually figure it out later. I didn't actually need to do that, but cut him in 10% to kind of hold my hand. Didn't work out like I thought, but I did most of the work myself. We raised plenty of money to make sure we didn't undercapitalize, and we just had a tighter plan. It's just experience. You know?
You learned the lesson from the last one.
Yeah, and now it's going great.
Overraised.
I still own that property. It's going great.
And you had some bad things happen, like a tree fell on it, right?
Yeah, I had a tree fall on it. That was last year. It is still not completely fixed.
Jesus.
So it's been difficult. We've had problems with the city, but because we bought that property at a discount, and because I knew, what we did was, on the first property, if I had 24 units, if I had 2 vacancies, I was breaking even. That's catastrophic. On this property, on 52 units, if I had 8 vacancies, I still got to pay my investors their 8% preferred return. So even with 8 vacancies, I can pay. I can pay not just breaking even, I can pay returns.
It's a way better deal.
Way better deal. So even though we've had 4 downed units for a year, it's like nobody's noticed. So I shouldn't say nobody's noticed. It's like we've been bleeding money. We've been bleeding potential profits, but like our balance sheet continues to grow. Our cash reserves continue to grow, and our investors continue to get paid.
And are you still raising rents?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rents in Fayetteville are not, do not seem to be slowing down.
Yeah. They're not going down at all.
Yeah. So average rent in that place, I think, was like $740 when we got it. Now I want to say average rents is like $940.
It's a 30%.
Yeah, it's not bad.
30% increase.
It's not bad. Yeah. So, and then we've done a ton of new, like air conditioning units. We've replaced a lot of plumbing. We've done I would like to do more upgrades, but we've done a lot.
I mean, so that one's a cash cow. Are you looking to do more apartment syndications? Yeah,
I'd love to, but the problem now is a guy sold one just like that a few months ago, and it's 54 units. He sold it for $4.5 million at a 7% rate. Doesn't make any money. I don't want to buy, and I don't want to go take other people's money and then not and pay them what, 4%. The problem now is treasury bills are 4.5%. So for me to entice somebody to come invest with me, which is, apartments are a lot higher risk than a T-bill. I have to be able to pay them 8-10% very, very reliably.
There's a lot of rumors going around, or just talk, that the commercial and apartments are going to take a pretty hard hit within the next 6 months or a year. There's going to be a lot of bad shit that happens to it.
Yep.
Are you waiting for that? Is there something that you're waiting for, or what's your thoughts?
I would like to think of myself as somebody who I like to say yes to opportunity. So I'm also, it's so interesting. This is a wildly misunderstood and misapplied quote. Warren Buffett says, when people are greedy, be fearful. And when people are fearful, be greedy. For the last 10 years, last 4 years specifically, everybody has been very greedy. And then when somebody else says no to a deal, they're afraid, I'm going to buy it. I'm like, they said no because it's overpriced. Now, we will know when people are fearful, right? There will be blood in the streets. Yeah. Then I will get greedy. Right now, I am fearful. So I think what's going to happen with commercial real estate is it's traditionally on 5-year loans. Everybody who bought in 20, 21, 2019, 22, the bill is going to come due. And we're seeing it already. We're already seeing it. I mean, there's defaults, there's lawsuits, there's The crumble is beginning.
A lot of people aren't happy. A lot of the investors aren't happy.
No. Good news, and I knew this was going to come because, again, it's important to study macro. It's important to study macro. So I said, there's no way the interest rates can stay this low. This is not a traditionally, we've been under a subsidy for 10 years. The low rates are a subsidy. They're the anomaly. They are not the rule. These people that think that rates were 3% or, Federal Reserve rate was 1%, then it goes to 5%. And this is the anomaly. And now it'll go back to 1% as the normal. It's like, no, rates were 5%. We had the greatest recession in 100 years. They went to 1%. That's the anomaly. And now they're back to 5%. That's going to stay. As long as they possibly can, that's going to stay. Theoretically. I don't know. Okay. I knew that one of two things were going to happen. The rates were going to go up. That's the responsible thing. The other thing is they're going to keep rates low and they'll destroy the US dollar for good. So I was like, well, they've put themselves in a very terrible position, but
that's not necessarily going to destroy the US dollar.
If you continue to inflate the dollar?
If you continue to inflate it, but it's not like what is Europe doing, right? Europe has super low rates.
I don't want to get too far on a tangent. Let me finish this thought. So I said, they're going to raise the rates. I don't want to have a 5-year balloon. So I got a 20-year Freddie Mac loan.
Perfect.
3.55%.
And that loan's worth money.
It's also assumable. So if I want to sell it, I can sell it with that loan in place.
Yeah.
So I'm fine. All my investors, I have investors that are starting to ask me if anybody else wants to exit, they'll buy shares.
Yeah.
So I'm good.
You got a sweet deal.
I got a wise deal. I didn't luck out. I created the deal wisely.
And I think I just don't think going forward we're going to have the growth in the United States like we have.
Stagflation.
I think we're going to be like Europe, to where Europe they lowered rates so much that they had negative interest rates and they still couldn't get anyone to build there. No new building, no new infrastructure, no new anything.
Yeah, so
I think the United States isn't it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's real estate.
But I could be wrong.
No, yeah, of course, yeah, we're speculating. And that's real estate, but that's also there'll be runs in other areas, right? AI. There's going to be other areas where things blow up. Content.
Yeah.
Content is a monster opportunity with a lot of growth. And so I think what happens is people think, and not you, but I think there's a tendency, especially with newer investors, when they hear words like the economy, so they do on the news, the economy. And, Apple's going to do well. Meta is going to do well. Real estate might not do as well, but we just had a 10-year run like no other. So there's a lot of people like myself that, became millionaires for just kind of showing up and doing the minimum. It's like, I got incredibly lucky. Yeah. And it's, to think that you're always going to get lucky like that is it's not realistic. So now we're going to play this sort of stagflation game. It's not going to be as easy, but there'll be other opportunities. So the question is, for some people, it's like, do you want to do real estate or do you want to chase the next opportunity?
Real estate will always be there.
Real estate will always be there, sure.
But you're probably not, you won't get wealthy off of real estate. You can keep your wealth. You'll grow your wealth slowly with real estate. It will gradually go up. But I mean, if you want to get mega wealthy, cash in on this AI. Cash in on a way to...
Well, it's a lot more speculative. If you want reliable wealth, buy real estate. The inflation is going to help. The cool thing about real estate right now is it's hyper optionality. If you buy real estate right now and you get a fixed rate, and you can get fixed rate loans, which are getting harder to do because nobody wants to lock in at 5% and then rates go up. So if you can get a fixed rate loan and you can cash flow and you just sit on it, the inflation's going to raise the rents over time. And if the rates come down, you refinance. Like the real estate is, if you can buy at high interest rates and sell at low interest rates, that's where you make all your money.
Yeah.
So rates are kind of high right now. The time to buy is kind of right now. It's coming, right? When the blood is in the water, when people start exiting and they're like, you still got to pay a little bit for it. It's like, okay, but if you can hold and you can survive if and when the rates come down, which eventually they will, right? Is my expectation. Eventually something will happen. They'll drop the rates. You'll become massively wealthy. It's not going to be sexy for a little while.
December was a great time, but I ran out of money. I had no money left.
I think the idea of doing what I did, which is, you buy 8 houses in 2 years, and they're all 30% underpriced and they cash flow day one. That's harder. Can you still buy real estate that, makes money and creates big wealth? Absolutely. It's not as sexy as it was. It's not as easy as it was. There's a lot more competition. You're in a mania stage.
So, I mean, back to people getting rich or wealthy, the key to wealth is leverage. And if you want to maximize your leverage, you have to, what maximizes it? To do a singular event, like let's say film a podcast. And if this is watched by 1,000 people, 10,000, 10 million, 10 billion, it is the same amount of effort for me. We just click post, maybe we chop up a few clips, but that's it. It's the same amount of effort for us, whether we have 100 viewers or 100 million viewers. And that is a way that you could leverage. I mean, with what you're doing with AI and bots, you're managing Brandon Turner's podcast right now, along with others, and more are coming, and creating a platform for all creators. This is fucking digital real estate. This is creation real estate. This is online real estate, which is way more higher leveraged.
But it's also way more speculative. It doesn't mean with real estate, when you buy this property, you own it and you get a 30-year fixed mortgage. It's going to get paid down in 30 years and you're going to own it and it's going to be worth what it's worth.
Yeah.
With digital real estate, there are much fewer guarantees.
But the potential reward for those who are good is infinitely more.
That's the downside of real estate, actually, in many ways. You know, I got a 52-unit apartment building. It makes $50,000 a month. It can't make $100,000. It can't. The downsides are sort of fixed and the upsides are sort of fixed, right? It's a blessing and a curse. You're like reliable. Also, the potential is too reliable.
If you look at my flips, buying it for $400,000, maybe put $50,000 into it, maybe sell it for $550,000. Sure, I might make $70,000 or $60,000. I'm not going to make too much more. I won't make $1 million off of one property.
Right.
I have to do so many.
Whereas a business or content, you know, you sell something. It's like, dude, you know, if you have a $500 product, you know, there's 8 billion customers now.
Yeah.
There's 8 billion customers and you can basically reach all of them. So
people who are doing content or people who are just popular in general, including basketball players, musicians, all these people are making infinitely more money than they ever had before. Even
some of them,
inflation adjusted.
Some of them. You know what's funny is actors, the people who used to have all the audience are struggling more than one would have thought.
Well, there's new actors. Traditional actors are archaic. Everybody's watching YouTube. I'm not watching television. Yeah,
but that's my point. You know, you see Marvel and I'm like, you put 20 freaking characters in a show because everybody has to kind of get their little piece, where, you know, I'm just surprised that they haven't been able to go onto YouTube and be a more successful actor and get their own audience. And you need a fraction of the audience. You don't have to sell, you know, you don't have to do millions in box office tickets to make a payday. You can, like, you know,
everything in TV's overhead is massive.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan's overhead is like what, one guy and some security?
Yeah, I use better cameras than Joe Rogan. It's like overkill. You know, we have better cameras, we have better lighting. I mean, his is not a...
Marlon, these are the mics that he uses, and then those are the cameras he uses, right?
No, Joe uses, he uses camcorders.
Camcorders?
He uses Sony camcorders.
Okay, so I have better cameras than Joe Rogan. You're goddamn right I do.
Yeah.
Am I right? But speaking of content, I mean, if you think of everybody who's became a billionaire in the past 20 years, like most of the people who are millionaires are because of real estate or traditional stuff. But when you take a look at the billionaires in the past 20 years, how they do it, it's all online companies.
Yeah, tech. I mean, content and tech are not the same thing, but
there's a handful of real estate billionaires. And even them, like Grant Cardone, they're all, you know.
Well, he's a sales guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a sales guy who parlayed into real estate, and then he did the same thing. You know, he got into it right when the run began. So 10 years of big apartment buildings is a lot of leverage. It's a lot of buying at 7 caps and selling at 4 caps, and that will make you a lot of money at scale. And so if that's the problem right now is, I think if you're buying, like in Fayetteville, they want to sell a C-class multifamily. It comes down to this. They want to sell a C-class multifamily for a 5 cap. And I'm like, I can get a T-bill for 4.5% return. And God forbid that 5 cap, you know, if I sell it are rates going to go down? Because if they don't, if rates go up and I have to sell that 5 cap at a 7 cap, I lose money.
Yeah.
And also, why would I buy a C class multifamily at 5 cap when I could go buy an A class at 4 for a fraction of the risk? So I think it's sort of an exacerbation of
What is better, an A class at 4% or C class at 6%?
A at 4.
A at 4.
Yeah.
Why?
Because like the capitalization rate is how much money you make without debt, but it's also a function of risk.
Mm-hmm.
So a 4 cap means you make 4%, but you take a low risk. But a C class property, that should probably be a 7 or 8 cap. You pay it at 6 means you're overpaying. You're probably overpaying.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's gonna be a lot more risk because a C class property is like built before 1980. Doesn't have the same amenities, right? People are not gonna aren't gonna live there. It's harder to upgrade the properties. It's harder to get new tenants in there. It costs a lot more in rehab. So would you want a nice new property that doesn't need a lot of maintenance, that people like living in and have amenities and live near Starbucks and make 4%? Or would you rather have a problem property to make maybe 2% more?
I mean, you make money off of the problems that you deal with, right?
In theory, but I mean, what if you what if you overpaid $100,000 for a house and you put $120,000, you fixed $120,000 with a problem?
Yeah.
Right? Now you don't make money. So it's not just fixing problems. There are hard valuations that matter.
Yeah. When I need higher profits on certain areas of this town.
If you take a higher risk, you get paid more. That's capitalism.
Yeah. But that's because I'm going to get broken into.
Which is why a C class at a 6 cap or a 5 cap doesn't make any sense because there's so much risk. Right? Think about it. It's exactly
But what
this.
are the risks? It's not like you're going to get broken into.
Yes.
And just things will get broken down.
Dude,
more.
I had a bunch of kids light fireworks in my laundry room for 4th of July one day. And I had the fire department in there. There's an arson investigation, right? They're knuckleheads. Every single month they take the doors on my the garbage, the big green garbage bins. They have these doors so you don't have to look at it, right? They rip them off every month for 2 years. We ended up getting in there and we installed metal piers, concrete piers and metal gates. So they finally couldn't rip off the wood doors, and they still rip the wood doors off the metal gates.
Jesus.
And it's because it's a $750, $850 property, and it's.
I didn't think that would happen.
Yeah. You know what's the interesting thing about C-class property? I wonder, anybody who listens to this, they're going to get a kick out of this. Every single apartment building both apartments I've owned, there's a trend. Every single week, there's mattresses outside. There's a bed mattress outside for some reason, sitting by the lawn. And I'm like, I've had 3 bed mattresses my entire life. How are these people going through one every week? Every single week, I got a 24-unit apartment building. I saw 52 mattresses.
Wow.
How? And they're always getting thrown out. And it looks terrible to just see a mattress out there.
It's a little trashy.
It's trashy.
It's a little ghetto.
Yeah. So, do you want to take all that problem and make 5%, or you can go buy a T-bill online and earn 4.5% and take no risk?
I mean, just give it to a property manager and they have the problem.
Okay, but you're still only going to make 5%.
Yeah.
Why make 5% and have to talk to a property manager when you can earn 4.5% and do zilch and have no risk? The United States government is not going to default.
Mm-hmm. Not yet.
Well, if they default, yeah, we got some problems.
So we talked about how we met at the networking event at the Outback. And then you created your own event, right? So you were the beacon. You said just show up at 8 a.m. on a Sunday, the most fucking stupid time that anyone ever had to meet up. But you got people to show up. You got idiots to show up. So how did you do that? And why did you even hold that meetup when there was other ones?
Yeah, I have a polarizing personality. I talk a lot of shit. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about what I want to talk about, which is usually, I'm argumentative. I like talking about abstract topics. And I wanted to make sure that, I like to meet people, not salespeople.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, look, I'm going to put a barrier of entry. I'm going to make it hit hard, which means the people who show up really want to show up. And I do that with a lot of things in life. You call me a bad salesman all the time. Yes. And it's like, right, I want to know if it's what you want to do or if it's something I'm coercing you into do. And I want you to do what you want to do. And I want to see if what you want to do and what I want to do are the same thing.
Yeah.
So if you only do it because I'm like selling you on it, then it's like, I don't want a follower. I don't want a puppet. I don't want somebody that doesn't have an opinion and they're just like, oh, this guy seems cool, so I'll just do whatever he says. I want somebody that's like, yeah, I want to show up at 8 a.m. on a Sunday and meet real people and talk about, big topics and have real conversations. And so I sort of created that barrier, and it worked because I'm amazing.
And I didn't show up till like a few months in, I think. But did it start off degenerating into politics, into everything else except for real estate? And just to kind of say the vibe, it would start off as real estate for 1 hour to 2 hours. And then after 1 to 2 hours, we would just debate about politics, debate about theories, debate about books, and everything else.
I think Americans are in desperate need of community.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we called it Real Estate Church. They're in desperate need of community. And people do want to talk about important things. They forget because they've watched TikTok all day, and TikTok is nonsense. And then they watch the news, and it's sound bites and shallow and polarizing and angertainment, right? And God forbid they turn on politics, which is just more of the same, except angrier and more sensationalized. But I am of the opinion that most people are actually deep down inside, they're fairly curious, and they do want to have real conversations about real topics of things that matter, and they want to learn. And not everybody is I'm very opinionated. Not everybody's opinionated. Some people do want to hear other people's opinions, and they want to listen, and that's all fine. And some people, but overall, I think people crave this, and I think they miss it. And so I know that that's how I felt, and I know that I'm not special.
Yeah.
So
You're unique, but you're very unique.
So, but if I said, hey, if I want to talk to people about important topics, and I want to have real conversations, and I want to actually meet people, then other people must feel the same way.
And that's the thing that you don't really get at most meetups.
No,
Most
you
meetups.
get business card exchanges.
Yeah. Hey, how are you doing? Here's what I do. Here's my card.
I loathe small talk. I hate small talk. I don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
How you doing? Okay, great. Do you believe in God? Right? Donald Trump or Hillary? You know what I mean? Like, what do you think is going to happen with the Federal Reserve? Who started the Ukraine war? It was
us.
Let's get right to things that are important. And again, not for everybody, but when you say, that term, the beacon, it's like, dude, I'm not looking for everybody. I'm not trying to start a big meetup. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm looking for my people.
And to kind of say where the beacon started from, actually, can you say where the beacon started from? What is the beacon?
The beacon was, I don't know if you're referencing a specific story, but the beacon is this idea that I was just going to show up once a Sunday at 8 a.m. and I was just going to show up and I was going to be there.
Yeah.
And then because I sort of set that culture up in a way, it's like people are going to show up. My people are going to show up.
Yes. It is the difference between, there's people who, I don't know if I want to say collaborate, but there's people who, no, there's coordinators. Hey, if we show up on Sunday, will you go? Will you go? Will you go? Would you be down with that? Is that okay with you? Does that fit with your schedule? Or there's being the beacon. I'm going to be at Einstein's Bagels at 8 a.m. on Sunday. Whoever else wants to be there can show up. And you get people to show up. But you're not seeking anyone else's opinion. You're not checking on anyone else's schedule. You're like, I'm going to do it. And if you want to do it too, then you can be there.
I do. That's how I do everything. Same thing with book club. I have a book club. It meets every week. We read classic literature and philosophy, and it's not for everybody. And I don't care if you go. And I'm never going to ask you to come.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm there.
Yeah.
And I collect people along the way. So 8 of us show up every week.
Are any as crazy as you?
Surprisingly, yeah, they're all. They are my people, yes.
Do they debate the topics?
Yes.
So like the books that you read, just give a few examples of.
We're reading the Brothers Karamazov now.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good one. That's a good one. That's a hard book.
Yeah.
It's philosophy. It's mostly moral philosophy.
Why did you choose that book?
That's a good question. So the book club is 80% dictatorship of what I want to read, and everybody else, it's my book club. But I'm a benevolent dictator. So I say, what does everyone else want to read? And we got suggestions. And somebody had said the Brothers Karamazov. I had read it 2 years ago, or I'd listened to Audible. It's a tough one. And so I was looking for a reason to reread it. And, when everybody else wanted to read it, it just sort of worked out. And that's kind of how book club is in general. It's like, we'll figure out what we want to read next. It's not a big plan. It's not a big production. I'm not an ops guy. It's just like, I'm going to show up every week for this hour. Mm-hmm. And we'll figure out what we'll read next, 2 weeks before.
What is it that you like to read the most in that book club?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Moral philosophy.
Moral philosophy.
Yeah, religious philosophy.
And what is the reason for that? What do you get?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think everybody lives through this world, and if you ask them, they all say, I'm a good person. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks of themselves as a good person. What exactly does that mean? What does it mean to be a good person?
Means that most would say one is moral, one is productive, one is good to their family.
Yeah. What does moral mean?
Everything I just said.
Yeah. I find it to be much more complicated the more I learn. I mean, the Bible is 1,600 pages. It says more than what you just said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It says a lot more than what you just said. So I think what I found...
I'm better at simplifying than the Bible.
There you go. Why do you not get to humanity? Why does it take 4 commandments in the 10 commandments? Why are the first 4 not about humans?
Not about humans?
Right. They're about God. All of them.
Isn't the first one, thou shalt not kill?
No.
Okay, I'm not an
That's the
expert
4th
on the
one.
Bible. Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. The first 4, no, you shall have no other gods before me. Right? Why the first? And so that's not the tangent I want to go down, but these things are well thought out and important, and they set up frameworks for how one should live their life. And I've been in situations in my life where, morality is very easy when there's nothing on the line. It's very hard when the stakes are high.
Well, let me ask you this. Like, a lot of people watch stories for mindless entertainment or because it takes them away. Some people like action movies because it gives them a sense of adventure, even if they're not going on it. A lot of business people read a lot of self-help books because it makes them better business people. A lot of people read finance books to make them better at finance. People read better psychology books to either make them better at sales or in their relationships or a better human. But what is the point of what I'm going to call narcissistic
psychobabble? Yeah. There's traps in human life. We do things that make our life harder and we don't realize it. Most of philosophy is just self-help, right? But it's not somebody who figured it out today. It's thousands of years of figuring things out and writing it on paper. That's what I don't like about self-help is like some guy who didn't read philosophy, figured some stuff out, wrote it down. He's like, look what I figured out life. And I'm like, it's already been written by people better than you.
Yeah.
You just didn't want to do the work. And so, you do have
to weed out the bullshit. There's some good, there's a lot bad. But
I'm not saying you should read that stuff. I'm just saying this is what I like. I like to go to the source. Impulse control. Money, drugs, alcohol, women. People have bad impulse control. Anger. What about things like pettiness, revenge, spite? These are bad emotions. Now, you might know they're bad emotions, but do you know the depths of how bad this can twist your life? What about lying? So it's one of those things. Everybody knows, you shouldn't lie. It's like, exactly how bad is it if you create a life where you lie to both other people, to yourself, white lies? I find it very interesting and it makes my life better. I'm very happy because I don't make the mistakes that other people make that they don't know are as bad as they are.
Now, what about this? What if people are profiting off those mistakes? For example, in 2023, more than any other period in the history of time, the people who are petty, the people who do lie, I mean, what do they call it? The clap back on Twitter. This person clapped back. This person was petty. This person showed their butt on Instagram and now they have 1 million followers and they're rich. Who's the most famous woman in America right now? Kim Kardashian. What is she famous for? All those vices that you just listed. A lot of the people who are rising to the highest heights of fame are doing it off of everything that is objectively wrong.
Fame is not success.
Many people would say that it is.
Yeah, they're wrong.
Even throughout time, like glory, in your country and
glory and honor is a different thing. If you're a warrior, if you're a great warrior, and you put a lot of risk and you put your life on risk and you go defend your nation, it's not fame. It is glory. You're right, but that's a very different thing.
Yeah.
What we have, this celebrity fame is empty and vapid, and how happy is Kanye?
Yeah. Kanye loves Kanye.
Yeah. Do you think so? I mean, I don't know these people. I know a lot of people that
know.
have mild fame and it only makes their life worse, almost universally.
I think Kanye hates when he's happy because I think that he is always the best when he's a little irritated. That's when he does shit.
Well,
So if he ever is happy, then he feels out of place because that's what got him to the top, is having a chip on his shoulder. So when he is happy, then he feels like he lost his touch.
yeah, I don't know that there's that many people that I look at that would even say that, you know, there are a lot of rich people that I know.
Mm-hmm.
Almost none of them say that money is like the key to their happiness.
Well, to quote the great philosopher Kanye West, having money isn't everything, not having it is. So if you're broke,
you don't want to be
really
broke.
bad.
You don't want to be broke, but there's a long distance between not being broke. I'm not broke. I'm very happy. More money. If I had a lot of money, my guess is actually the more money I get, the more stressed out I get.
Really?
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I'm loving it. I'm loving every minute.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. It solves a lot of problems for me.
People have been around for a long time, and they've been writing about stuff, and like you're right, glory and money. These are not new things, and there's not a philosophy, a religion. There's not a textbook. There's not a single advocate in the world that's like, you know, tried and true that says money is going to make your life better. Not having enough is certainly bad. But like nobody's like, yeah, if you get famous, then life gets better. I mean, it's pretty much a universally condemned thing. There's very few people that advocate for fame or money as like, that's how you live the good life.
Yeah.
There's no religion, there's no philosophy that advocates for that. And so, in fact, from whether it's, like the Eastern religions, Hinduism, the Stoics, the Greeks, or you know, Judeo-Christian values, a lot of it is impulse control, like I said. Right? Don't want. Be content. And that stuff, those ideas are very grounding for me. And I think there'd be a lot of grounding for other people, but they don't want to, you know, they just want to get rich or die trying.
As a business person, do you think it's counterintuitive? Because what is the first thing that they say to do when you go to a business conference? Write down your goals. What do you want to get? Is it the Ferrari? Is it the big house? Is it this? They are trying to create a delta between what you want and what you have so that you feel the need to rise above. But it would be argued that makes you a better person.
Yeah. My experience, the leaders that I look up to, the business leaders of today, none of them are doing it for Ferraris or houses. They're doing it to maybe solve problems of humanity or to create something. The money is a byproduct, almost universally, from Steve Jobs to Elon Musk to Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is like notoriously frugal. The money does nothing for him, right? Even Bezos, right? He's spending some money now, but it's like, dude, that dude didn't do it to become a billionaire. He did it maybe for some power, right? But he did it. He built something. He built something that was very difficult to build.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is certainly not doing it for the money.
Correct.
Zuckerberg is not doing it for the money. Who else? Hermosi is not doing it for the money. You're the only one. I think
the people who say that they're not are the ones who already have all the money.
I think that, well, but I mean, I look at it, right? That dude's not, I don't think that dude drives a Ferrari. I bet you he probably drives a Ford, a truck.
Which one?
Hermosi.
I
he drive?
What he said he drives. Like,
You think he's driving a Lamborghini?
He did have an i8 and then he like gave it up.
i8's the least cool sports car of all time.
I mean, it's not bad.
A hybrid V6 BMW.
A Mazda Miata is worse. A Mazda Miata is the worst sports car that ever existed.
Maybe.
What was on Family Guy? They're like, oh yeah, I was riding in my sports car. What's your sports car? Well, you know, what was the need to know? What was your sports car? Mazda Miata.
They track a lot of those Mazda Miatas. Again, I can't speak for everybody else. I mean, look, if you're motivated by Ferraris and stuff, then go for it. But I think that's a very... So, and this is one thing that philosophy does, right? In religion, right? It sets a value hierarchy. Okay? It says you get to decide what's most important, or generally what happens is the philosophy decides for you, which is healthy because you don't know. If you pick what's most important for you, you're going to pick poorly. And so what philosophy and religion does is it sets a goal of what is the best, the good, the ideal. And this is what you live up to. And very rarely is it some superficial, empty thing like a car or a house or a piece of jewelry. It's usually something that has to be very, very great. What is it? Nietzsche, a man who has a big enough why withstand any how.
Yeah.
Right. But a Ferrari is just not that big of a why.
And one of the people who I guess would be considered a modern day philosopher is Naval Ravikant.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot about, being humble, grounded, meditation, and that he's, since practicing these things, he's much less angry now than what he was before when he was building everything. And he's much more happy now than he was before when he was building everything. But it's very fucking convenient that he says all these humble things now after he made it, after he has the money.
Sure. Do you think that that's when they figured out? Do you think that people, they figure out that they're like, hey, this doesn't actually work. So let me write a book. Let me give you some advice.
What I would say is I've studied happiness quite a bit, and I've studied Maslow's hierarchy, not hierarchy of needs, the hedonic treadmill, right? Which is basically the concept of you essentially have a base level happiness, and whatever you get, anything that money could buy, there's essentially hedonic adaptation. So you're 16, your first car is a Honda Civic. You're happy as shit. You got the first car. You're so happy in life. And then 2 years later, it's just another car. So what do you get? You get maybe a Lexus. And now you made it. You got a Lexus. You're so happy. You got the coolest car. And 2 years later, it's just another car. So what do you get? You get a Mercedes. And it's the coolest thing. Then you get a Lambo. And the Lambo is the coolest. You're taking all the pictures in your Lambo. 2 years later, it's just another car.
And
2 years later, you're like, man, I was more comfortable in the Lexus. There's a lot of people who have to get the Ferrari to say, you know what? The Lexus was way more comfortable, way smoother, doesn't make all the noise.
Are you arguing for my point now?
Well, what I'm arguing is this. Okay, so let me finish my point. It's people, all the things that money can buy, there's hedonic adaptation. However, the things that there's not hedonic adaptation for is the things that money can't buy, all the things 1,000 years old, whether that's your family, where you are in the community. If you want to know a way that can make you permanently happy, it is, and just to give another point, people who go to jail, massive unhappiness spike, right? 2 years later, they're just as happy as ever. Actually, people who lose a ligament 2 years later are said to be happier than before they lost their leg.
They appreciate what they have left.
They appreciate life more. People who win the lottery 2 years later are less happy because they had that massive happiness spike, and now they're never going to match.
So the money can't be it.
The money isn't it. But here's what I'll say, because money is a byproduct of things. When it comes to family, where you're at in the community, your accomplishments, your position in life, these are things that can permanently raise your happiness. Being loved by your family, having good friends around, good community around, though, sex, these are things that you don't really get hedonic adaptation to. So the people who made it, like, hey, is Michael Jordan happy because he made all that money, or is he happy because he's proud of his legacy of being the greatest basketball player who ever lived? Is he happy because he looks back at his life and he says, I have 6 championships. The money was a byproduct of it.
I agree.
Like Naval Ravikant is happy now, but he's happy because he founded AngelList.
But who was the last broke philosopher?
All of them.
Yeah, 100 years from now, who's going to be the philosophers of today? Like, they're all rich.
They're all rich. And Socrates, I'm pretty sure.
Nietzsche was
he
broke.
He taught people.
Yeah, but everybody was broke.
Yeah.
I don't know your point.
Well, his point is every modern day,
that money,
anyone who has a voice now is rich.
Yeah, I'm saying that you're saying that money is nothing to do with it, but in this day and age, I think it does.
Yeah, everybody who doesn't have money has always thought that.
True.
They always think the money makes a difference. But like you just said, family, community, accomplishments.
But the philosophers of today all have money, though.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't start a course in real estate until I was a millionaire or I wouldn't start the podcast or anything because I'm like, why would anybody listen to me if I wasn't?
Jordan Peterson was teaching for 40 years, making a professor's salary.
Nobody listened to him
until the internet. Right. And now he's going to be very wealthy.
Yeah.
But
the internet certainly monetizes attention. So any philosopher who you'll know of from here on out will be rich.
Yeah, but they're not doing it. They're not doing it for the money.
Correct.
I mean, Jordan Peterson cannot be that happy with his life right now. It's got to be tough, even though he's making more money than ever.
He became a drug addict.
Yeah.
He was very unhappy.
Yeah.
He deals with a lot of stress.
Lottery winners are a good example. Like the money does not make them happier. They mostly go broke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The-
But I like this idea because it prevents me from chasing things that are empty, which is what a lot of people default to. They chase things that are empty. We live in a consumerist culture, and people chase Christmas, they chase clothes, they chase houses, they chase cars, and they're not that happy. Good example. If you earn $30,000 a year, United States dollars, you're in the top 1% global earners. But people are not the 1% happiest people in America, but they're the richest.
Yeah.
If you live in America and you have a cell phone, a refrigerator, electricity, and air conditioning, right? You're richer than anybody who lived in a castle 150 years ago. The richest people on the planet, your quality of life is better, and they're not happier. They're fussier. It is not a money thing.
But why aren't they happy?
Well, because I think, again, for these reasons, that this is what philosophy says, is why are you not happy? Well, because you're chasing things that are empty. What an alcoholic can't stop drinking. What's at the bottom of the bottle that he's trying to get to so bad? Nothing. And he gets to it every night.
So you think it's because they pursue money?
I think it's because they pursue empty things, which is why philosophy and religion, which is basically the same thing. Philosophy is, which is what that tries to do. It tries to teach you to chase things that have a higher value. And a lot of things you just named: community, purpose, accomplishments,
Family,
procreation, legacy, service, helping people.
Yeah.
Right? Those things they make us feel fulfilled. There's no car that's going to make you feel fulfilled. It's going to get dirty. You're going to get bored of it. You don't care. I mean, there's car guys out there, but even then, I love Jay Leno.
Yeah.
So all those cars, he drives them. He likes them.
It's his hobby, but he's so rich. I mean, that's like collecting.
Sure. But again, it's the same point. He doesn't
Legos.
baby them. He's like, I drive. I don't buy cars that aren't driven.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't buy cars that aren't driven. So, he's a perfect example of somebody who's like, Jay Leno, who's the other one? The Porsche guy. B movie.
Oh, Seinfeld. Yeah,
Seinfeld. Yeah. He's the same way. Car guy, right? And he's like, look, I'm lucky. I made all this money because I get to do my favorite hobby, which is collect cars. But he didn't go become the best comedian and do that show because he wanted to get a car collection. It's the byproduct of. And now he's healthy about it, right? I assume. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not making him go broke.
No. It's he's not going broke doing
Do you
it.
think? Do you actually? Do you actually disagree? Do you think money and fame are? Do you not agree that they're empty?
They're simply a vector to do something else. Well, I mean, for money, for money is just a means of exchange. So it gives you the power to do.
It's a currency for sure. They're both currencies.
And I would disagree with why Americans are happy or unhappy. It's because when you're 30,000 staying next to the person who makes 10,000, you feel superior. When you're 30,000 staying next to the person who also makes 30,000, you feel equal. When you're 30,000 and you're seeing everyone on TikTok and Instagram and whatever, and they're all making 5 million, you feel inferior.
This is called the Gini coefficient.
And what is the Gini coefficient?
It's relative inequality.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if you go to we're I don't know what our GDP per person parity is like the highest on earth. We are the richest people per person. Right? But we only see other people. Everybody else is the richest person on earth. If you went against the people who live in the Sudan or Ethiopia or Kazakhstan, you'd be like, I'm not doing so bad. I'm fine. And that's why, by the way, one of the most important things that an American can do is travel out of country. Perspective. Yeah. You're like, oh, life's so bad. I'm like, yeah. Yeah. Tell me how bad it is. Let's go somewhere.
But it's impossible not to do that. I mean, the wise Stoics say don't live your life in comparison, but it's pretty fucking hard not to live your life in comparison.
No, but what you're saying, and I agree with you, is when I go on the internet, I only compare myself with people who are better.
Yeah.
I don't go around comparing myself to people who are worse because I'm not exposed to them. So, because you're just not going to look at poor people TikTok from, Guatemala.
Yeah.
Right. But that's why you should go to Guatemala and you're like, these people are happier, friendlier, more inviting, and they have much less. Like I should get my mind right.
Yeah. I think it's an impossible thing to not do, to look
travel?
around you. Well, I mean, just to look around.
I'm not saying that you can't do it. It's an incredibly hard thing. But again, this is in all those philosophies. The comparison is the thief of joy, right? I'm not saying that you can't do it, but this is exactly why I like the philosophy, is because that is a common trap. Mm-hmm. It is hard to avoid. Everybody does it. It's also terrible for you.
So out of all the great Stoics and philosophers, which one do you think is the most interesting, or the one that is most helpful for someone?
My favorite is...
Because that could definitely be two different people.
My favorite, David Foster Wallace.
David who?
David Foster Wallace.
Who's that?
He's an American. He died in 1997 or so, maybe the 2000s. He wrote a lot of weird books. One of them, which I've mentioned to you many times, Infinite Jest, was about American culture. So it's specifically American. It's not ancient. It's written in the 90s, and it's written about the 2020s. And it is specifically American, and it is the hardest book I've ever read.
What does he talk about that makes him the best?
He talks about the American experience. He's very observant. It's written really interesting. He's brilliant. He writes it in a way that sort of gives you anxiety on purpose.
And that makes him the best.
What he does is he addresses people's, Americans' ability to be distracted by things that are shiny and meaningless.
And like what?
Drugs, alcohol, fame, sex, drugs. A lot of drugs in that book.
Yeah.
Other philosophers I like. I've read a lot of Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky's good. I read a few books by Tolstoy. Tolstoy's good.
If there's something that would make someone a better person, is there anything where it's like, hey, this will make someone...
Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life.
Jordan Peterson. I like him.
12 Rules for Life. It's ancient ideas packaged into a modern textbook. And generally all my favorite books are old, but that book is not old. Letters to a Stoic by Seneca is absolutely brilliant and easy to comprehend. And it's just like, it's all this stuff. It's like all the problems you have about your life are the same problems that people have had about life forever. There's always been poor people. There's always been rich people. The poor people always thought the rich people had it better. It's always been unfair. They've never had enough. There's always been power dynamics where people who have power, subjugate those without. People have always been subject to pettiness, which is a terrible, terrible thing to have. Jealousy, the desire for revenge, anger, impulse control. These are deception. They lie to themselves. They lie to each other. Like all of these bad things that make your life worse have been addressed for centuries upon centuries.
And for a lot of the Stoics or a lot of the philosophers, because I say Stoics because it has more of a purpose in it. I think a lot of the philosophers that you look at respectfully are just narcissistic psychobabble, where it's not a point. Like there's some people where they're giving philosophy, but it's to make you better. It's philosophy to make a better society and a better world, where I'm not sure if Freud is doing that. Freud just talks about how everybody wants to bang their mom.
Well, I think that I think context matters. And the problem with philosophy is that it's, if you read Nietzsche, like Nietzsche had a lot to say about a lot of different topics. And if you sort of jump in the middle, it can feel very lost. And so what is he talking about? And it's like, well, he's responding to this other philosopher whose book he didn't read yet. Or he's following up on a book that he already read. So you have to kind of read, I read 7 of them to get the gist. And they change because his ideas change.
Do you think it's one of those things to where in the Bible, they have what is it? Not cliff notes. The things on the side that define what the paragraph meant. Like it might.
That's not the Bible. That's like some version that you read. Some version to explain what it means, which is useful.
In a lot of Bibles. So
yeah. So for instance, the Talmud
in Bibles,
in the Torah, they have the Talmud. The Talmud explains what the Torah means.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, in a lot of, I mean, we were talking about it yesterday. So, like, the meek shall inherit the earth. But what the meek meant, it didn't mean the weak people. It means the people who could cause violence, but they don't.
Right.
The people who are peaceful will inherit the earth. But it's kind of like you need some things to be translated. Do you need Nietzsche to be translated in order to really understand it?
I think if you want to go in and you want to just read a book and get it, and you're going to read a hard book, I think you're going to have a really hard time. I think it requires, if you actually want to learn difficult concepts, then you're going to have to study.
Yeah.
So, a book.
There's some things that are easily glossed over that others have found so profound that they've quoted it 1,000 times.
It depends on what your mindset is. I mean, Nietzsche wrote a book called Thus Spoke Zarathustra, one of my all-time favorites. Okay? Love this book. And what it is where he famously says, God is dead. And so it's a parody of sort of the Old Testament, where a guy named Zarathustra comes down off this mountain and he's a prophet. And he's like, God is dead. We're going to start a new value system. And he goes through the land and he does what Jesus did. He prophesizes, or Moses, right? He prophesizes all these people, and he's like, we're going to do things differently. We're going to enact this Superman. We're going to evolve. And here's how it's going to work. And here's what we're going to do. And it's brilliant, right? But then you say, like, what's the point? And it's like, well, the point is that in the late 1800s, people were not taking Christianity that seriously. And so he's like, this is name only. You guys are not actually enacting the values. So we might as well crush Christianity, right? And we'll create something new.
And the full quote is, God is dead, we killed him. Right?
Okay. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. The point is that people are not taking it seriously. So might as well be, it's like, it's over. It's dead. So what are you going to do? Because you can't be valueless. You can't be a nihilist. You can't believe in nothing. Everybody believes in something. So what are you going to believe in? Let's design something new. And so when you say, like, some of these people are talking about nothing, I'm like, context matters. The book I read now, Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky writes, what he's writing about is the Soviet Union and the transformation of the culture from religious traditionalism to rationalist atheism, and the problems that was going to cause. He wrote 2 books about it, The Brothers Karamazov and Crime and Punishment, right? And so he's like, well, what's the point? Well, the point is, when the Russians gave up traditional religion and conservatism, and they went to rationalist atheism, you got the Soviet Union and 40 million people had to die. So it mattered.
Yeah.
Right? And so, the very similar thing is happening to America right now. We're giving up, we're giving up values, right? For not rationalist atheism, but postmodern atheism.
And across the world, especially in Latin America, they're giving that a try again right now.
Right, because people are cyclical. So it's interesting to have that sort of context about, like, what the dangers are of this sort of trend are. Now you can say, like, well, Alex, you can't do anything about it, or it's like, well, a lot of people are just not interested in that, and that's fine. I'm not trying to convince anybody. But you ask me, like, what do I get out of it? I'm like, I'm watching history unfold, and I'm seeing the dangers of it, and I know how not to get wrapped up in, what's popular, because what's popular is going to cause our downfall. And
when you look at my Audible list, so I say these things just to kind of push back and challenge you a little bit, because when you look at my Audible list, it's a lot of philosophy. Yeah. It's a lot of things that have nothing to do with business. Yeah. But at the same time, is that making me better? Am I better for it?
In the long run, you're absolutely, because what's interesting about philosophy, especially if you read, like, I read a lot of economic history too, right? Past is prologue, right? So if you want to know how they're going to react, to COVID, watch how they reacted to the Spanish flu in 1931. It's the exact same. So, like, if you start to read history and you start to read philosophy and you start to understand, like, history is just philosophy played out.
Yeah.
Right? They're the same thing. It's like philosophy of the ideas, history is the example. So when you start reading about human nature, that's what philosophy and history both do. They teach you human nature. Well, now you know what's going to happen when our culture changes. Right? If you read American foreign policy, or if you read, like, the history of war, when like, what's this thing in Ukraine? What does that matter? And it's like, well, it matters if you don't want to go to, if you don't want to go to war.
It matters. When you look at the other history books of battles, and it's just great battles, great people, great warriors throughout time, the same things play out over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You see how the game is played.
In 2000, George Bush was like, until Donald Trump, George Bush was widely regarded as the worst president for a very long time, right? Ranked, right? But in 2001, when we went to war, his approval rating shot up to like 73% overnight, right?
Yeah.
People were loving it, right?
And then he got common goal.
And then he got reelected by wide margin. Now you can say that's not philosophy, and it's like maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Right? People love their war. Why? That's good. Those are good things to know. It's good to understand human behavior. It's also good to understand that if you go, Tolstoy wrote a book called The Kingdom of God is Within You, and he separated the will of the church and the state, how the church and the state co-opt each other to psyop the public to say you can go kill people and it's morally okay as long as you do it in the name of war. But it's not actually okay. And so it's good to know that if you don't want to go fight immoral wars.
And it looks like that might be brewing again.
It's always brewing.
Soon. Yeah.
It's always brewing. And it works because you know what? War is good for bringing people together and it's good for the economy. And right now people are not brought together and the economy is not doing that good. So war will sort of fix a lot of things. And we haven't had war in a while now. So people forget.
And there's a few countries who haven't had war in a while who are itching for it.
Yeah, we've done something interesting, actually. The atomic bomb and the UN, surprisingly enough, we haven't had like Vietnam. We haven't had a super dramatic war since then in like 50 years. It's like the longest stretch of unfettered peace in human history. And I say that having gone to Afghanistan twice, but the reality is the Afghani war, in the first 10 years of Iraq and Afghanistan combined, we lost as many people as we did on D-Day.
Wow, and that's great numbers.
Yeah, it's great numbers. It's low risk. Now the Middle Easterns, we killed a lot of them. We killed 1 million of them, which is not good for them. But
we killed 1 million.
Yeah,
Jesus,
probably more.
Wow, I didn't know we went on a rampage like that.
Yeah. So again, I think when you say, Alex, you read Dostoevsky and stuff like this, and yeah, that's true. But I also read things like Capital in the 21st Century by Thomas Piketty, which is a philosophical economics book, historical philosophy.
And those make you incredibly wise with basically how the economic system is going to play out.
Yeah, how is Taleb philosophy, or is it economics, or is it business?
It's a little bit of everything. I mean, it's a little bit mindset. It's a little bit of philosophy. It's a little bit of just to challenge your thoughts because he wants to get under your skin. He wants to challenge you.
He also was one of the few people that predicted the 2007 crash with extreme accuracy. Literally said the Fannie Mae mortgage system is going to collapse 6 months before it did.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then he did a book about, and then he did Anti-Fragile, which was a book about how to live and invest in a world of uncertainty.
I think everybody could dabble into philosophy, and there's a lot of, so many things are philosophy adjacent.
Sure.
I mean, if it's business, they're giving you their business philosophies. If it's somebody who's a yoga instructor, they could give you their philosophies on, not going too hard, living life easy, doing what they do.
The term has a lot of context, a lot of baggage. People think it's heavy and dense and not fun, and a lot of times it is. But the reality is, and this is where I think you and I actually overlap. Some people's brains just like that. I just like abstract topics. There's a lot of people. My mom, she's like, it doesn't work on me.
Yeah.
Abstractions. She's like, I just want to know. My friend Brandon is the same way. Actionable, tangible, tactical. What can I do with this? Right. And it's like, I can't do anything with Dostoevsky. I can't tell you why.
And I am far more pragmatic or practical with some things.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want to debate topics just for the sake of debating topics. I want to.
Well, you like to troll sometimes too.
I like what?
To troll sometimes too.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously. But when it comes to, debating topics, like when it comes to talking about real estate, especially on this podcast, sometimes it's super fucking easy. What are you going to talk about? You just buy the real estate for less. you do some things to it and you sell for more.
Yeah.
Or you just buy a property with fixed debt, you go and rent it to a person so you have a fixed income, and now you just make money off it. That's super easy. There's really no brain cells to it. It's the psychology and the philosophy. So I read a lot of psychology, which is adjacent to philosophy, like Freud, and there's all the sales books will have philosophies in it.
Sure.
And then that is super useful.
What's interesting is I think business people, they like tinkering. They're like, I'm gonna build this thing. I'm gonna create this thing. They're tinkering with a problem, and I do the same thing. The world does not economically reward tinkering with difficult philosophical problems. It rewards people that solve tangible problems. But I can't help it. That's what I like. And so if you happen to like doing business, you're gonna make more money. But again, to go back to the earlier point about happiness, it's like if you are chasing money and you don't like building businesses and that's not really what you're built for and you're just trying to chase the money, it's not gonna make you happy because it's not what you want to actually do. So I think it's important to again, find the thing that fulfills you. If you happen to be fulfilled by, it's interesting, if you happen to be fulfilled by building a business, the money's not gonna matter because you're doing the thing you like to do.
Yeah.
So the fact that, I really like philosophy, but there's no money in it.
I think there's a lot of what people don't count on is there's a lot of hyper competitive people out there who love chasing money simply as points,
A game.
to show that they made it and that they're better than you.
Yeah. But the money, I can't imagine. Yeah. Again, the money's probably secondary, and maybe that's part of the game where they flaunt it, and I understand that. But again, not money for the sake of money. That's points for the sake of
like. Why did Dan Bilzerian do what he did? Was it because of the girls, or was it to say that he's better than you, that he's the best man?
Yeah. He's flaunting.
Yeah.
Peacocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's peacocking.
Yeah.
And that's what people like. People are, as far as living your life in comparison, if we play a game right now, I'm going to try to win. So some people, when they take a look at it, they take a look at if they make the most money, then they won. And that makes them very happy. Some people aren't happy with the money. They're happy that they won.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thankful I don't super have that. I think I do find myself to be envious sometimes. Actually, you know what I'm most envious of? I'm not envious of people's, what they have. I'm envious of their work ethic. I wish I had a harder work ethic. But
for what purpose?
I want to build stuff. I live in Maui, dude. There's nothing money can get. I'd like to buy a house in Maui, but even then, I live in 600 square foot right now, and we are very happy.
Well, let's talk.
I don't need that much stuff.
What brought you to Maui?
Oh, Brandon begged me to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets.
Uh-huh.
Why would anybody like that want you?
How long does this podcast go? Are we wrapping on time? Are we tight on time?
No. It's. I'm just here to stir the pot.
So when I got bored of when real estate got hard and the margins got thin, I'm a lifelong camera guy. No, that's not true. I've been doing cameras about 7 years now. Not a lifelong. And I really like doing production, and so I would go to real estate events and take pictures. And me and Brandon became acquaintances in 2018 when I was on the Bigger Pockets podcast, and then I would see him at the Bigger Pockets conference. And then, well, as you know, this content, this internet fad is not going away anytime soon. And so not only does everybody want to have a podcast, they want to have a well-produced podcast. They want to have a good-looking podcast. They want to have good-looking content. They want to have unique content, punchy content. And that's what I do.
What is your skill set?
I am above average with a camera. I am wildly talented with people. So I can't take pictures of landscapes. I don't take pictures of houses. I take pictures of people. And I get people to do things on camera that they don't think they can do.
I've seen your pictures of landscapes. They're pretty fucking good.
I mean, I have my moments.
The pictures of everything that you take are pretty good.
Yeah.
But I would say that your talent is exactly people. It's getting them to do things, is getting the right shot. I mean, when you're behind a camera, you just start yelling at everybody, even if they're all decamillionaires, 100 millionaires. You're just all telling them to do things and to say in a certain way, and you're controlling the shot. But they need that.
Yeah. So this is interesting, actually. I'm lucky that I have this experience, but I wouldn't be able to as good a camera person hadn't I had it. When I was in the Army, I did 4 years in the Army. Mm-hmm. I must have made somebody happy, but they sent me to a Green Beret unit. I was attached as a regular soldier. I wasn't an SF guy, but I went to a Special Forces Green Beret unit as a radio guy, which is common. You know, there was a couple of us, but it's a very small amount of people. There's like 8 of us, right? And so I went to Afghanistan with the Green Berets, the baddest of the bad, warriors, and in the military, there's a hierarchy. Some people are higher ranked than you, and some people are not higher ranked than you. It's not like the civilian world where, you know, you can say I have more money than you, but that's not like the defining factor. But like if you have a higher rank than you, then I listen and you talk, and that's that, and that's always that. Well, I learned a lot from those people because some of them are warriors and some of them are deeply insecure and they're trying to prove that they're real men, and that's why they do all these things, and that's just life, right? Mm-hmm. But I had some NCOs, some leaders that were real warriors. A guy named Donnie Reed, guy who was tough as a human being gets. He had been to Mogadishu in the 90s with like that Black Hawk Down mission, right? He was a ranger in Somalia. Like he was the baddest thing walking, and he gave me a lot of mentorship. And there's a lot of those other guys like that, right? He once threw the way he taught me how to detonate C4 was he threw a half a pound of dynamite at me. And when I caught it, he's like, yeah, it takes heat and pressure. You can set it on fire, but it won't explode. You need both. But he did it by throwing it at me. And so you get...
I love it.
So
the troll in me really enjoys that.
He was very tough. And then I met Donald Rumsfeld, who was the Secretary of Defense.
I heard he's a tough motherfucker.
I didn't meet him for that long, but I was 18. Mm-hmm. I was 19 and overseas meeting the Secretary of Defense, the highest ranking military person that existed, save maybe the president, if you think about that. I met generals, right? We did real missions. Like I was around the baddest people, the most mission-oriented people that the American military could produce. Mm-hmm. Well, and then I get into real estate, and I get around all these successful people and these rock stars, and the only thing that they've done that's cool is make a little bit of money in a business that's wildly easy.
Yeah.
And so I say all that to say when I get a camera and it's like, hey, go do this thing. It's because I respect them as human beings, but I am not intimidated by them because they've never done anything intimidating.
And you're the one with the camera, so you need to get your job of getting the best picture. Or I mean, what is your process on? Like, do you think, hey, because I have the camera and it's my duty to get the best pictures here, I can tell you what to do? Or do you just like telling people what to do for fun? And the camera's a bonus.
People, that's an interesting question. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both. I'm going to get my shot. And I don't care about your ego. And I don't think of people as more important than me. I don't care if you're famous. I don't care if you're Ryan Pineda. If I'm like, hey, stand over here. And if you don't do it, then you don't have to do it. Mm-hmm. It's not an ego game. It's like, hey, I want my shot. Stand right here. No, don't do that. Most people don't know. Most people have never gotten a good picture of them in their life, or very few. They want good pictures of them, and they're intimidated. So I give them confidence by saying, trust me, right? I got you. I know I'm harsh. Do what I say. I'm not punking you out. I'm helping you. I'm going to make you look good if you just get your little ego out of the way. But if you want to battle me, then like, I don't care. I'm not going to then go away. So for me, it's I know best. You don't know best. So I'm in charge.
Yeah.
And if you want to ego, but there's people that don't want to play the game. And I'm like, I don't care. Go ahead. I don't have anything to gain for it. I was going to make you look better.
Yeah. I would say that your outspoken personality And then just like people skills in general is really the thing that just helps you go in and really lead.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably just describe it as leadership, getting people to do.
Yeah, you got to show up and say, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. Yeah. And Brandon has trusted me tremendously on that because there was no podcast, 6 months ago. And I'm like, okay, we're going to buy this equipment. We're going to go down, downrange. It's basically deployments in the Army, right?
Yeah.
We're going to go downrange. We're going to set up our equipment. We're going to complete this mission. And, it's not that it's not easy, but I know what the mission is and I'm going to accomplish it. So the military has informed the dynamics of how I take pictures in a way that I just can't even explain it. So I wouldn't be me without the military and because of the way I take pictures and because of the way I am, like that mission oriented leadership, it's all Army.
So what is your job with Brandon Turner right now?
I'm trying to produce the best looking podcast that the internet has ever seen.
Mm-hmm. And am I allowed to say what happened today or no?
Sure. What happened today?
Well, you made some fucking advancements with AI.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. AI is coming. It's coming to every industry. It's coming to podcasting. It's coming to editing. I think today I spent $600 for the year, but I got rid of a $24,000 a year employee.
Wow.
And they're going to do what I'm going to do is going to produce 5 times the amount of results. So it's an exponential. It's going to cost, a fraction, right? Instead of $2,000 a month on this agency that I hire to edit, now I can pay $50 a month for a piece of software. And instead of producing 5 short videos a week, it's going to produce 25. So the spread was monstrous.
And I heard you talk about a KPI that nobody's really even talked about before, which is cost per production.
Yeah.
I guess you would say. If you want to rename that, by the way, with something better, but cost per production.
Cost per content.
Cost per content.
Yeah. So how much are you posting a week? Are you posting, say you post 1 time a day, so 7 days a week. And say it costs you I'm gonna have to, Marlon, you got a calculator out? Say it costs you, say you got a $5,000 employee, right? And you put out 7 pieces of content a week. That's 28 a month. What's that? 28 divided by 5,000. Or did I do it backwards?
Yeah.
So $178 per post. That's what it costs you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if you could double that? What if you could take the same person and just say, you're going to post twice a day instead of once?
Then you're getting down to...
You just doubled it. You just became twice as efficient. 90. What if you could triple it? Now, I understand that this is not a perfect metric. This is just something that I've been thinking about. So I'm not an expert or an authority.
You are an expert.
Maybe. But it is a good way to measure your efficiency of how much content you're pumping out. Now, not all content is created equal, but as of right now, there is no way to know what is going to hit on the internet and what is not going to hit on the internet. We do not know. So the goal is not to make the most intentionally viral clips necessarily. The goal is to produce valuable content and then pump a lot of it out and it's a see what sticks kind of game, right? It's in a weird way, it's advertising. It's like, you don't even have to pump out that much good content, to be honest. You just have to get your face out there. If somebody sees Brandon Turner every day, they're gonna be like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Who is this guy? The content has to be good enough, and our content is certainly good enough.
And they might recognize him, but what is he doing now? What's his
project? He's doing a podcast
right
called A Better Life. I'll give you the inside scoop. When he did real estate, he was, he's a real estate guy, and so he did it during this rise up. But I think now, he has a big enough following and a big enough business, right? He's got $900 million in real estate assets. I think now what he wants to do is he wants to play a bit harder game. He wants to go a little bit broader. And so he's like, look, I'll do wisdom. I'll do philosophy. I'll talk to the most interesting, successful people that and ask them, like, what does a better life mean, right? By the way, Jay, nobody said money yet. Nobody said money, right? It's always, the things we talked about as values. It's family, it's community.
Have me on there. I'll say it's money.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah, it's the only episode we won't air. So, but I think what he wants to do is he wants to make a a bigger impact on the world. And so we've done a very difficult thing, which is we've gone broad, right? We've gone broad on content instead of saying like Bigger Pockets was, this is how to teach you how to do real estate investing, teach beginners how to do real estate investing without all the hype, right? Very narrow. So what's a better life? And it's like, well, that's complicated, right?
Yeah.
And it encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses health, wealth, and relationships. So it's harder, but it's also a much bigger vision. And by the way, I'd like also to say that podcast funds, the whole thing is basically an advertisement for the Better Life Tribe, which is a mastermind, an accountability mastermind. So you get into small groups of 7 people, right? You set goals, you announce your goals, and people hold you accountable so that you can actually make your life better. And that company donates 100% of profits to charity to fight human trafficking.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty good.
Right. So everything that we're doing right now is altruistic, and there's no equity in it. So I'm not doing this for money.
So the whole thing is a nonprofit.
The whole thing is a nonprofit.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And so the people who buy into the tribe, you get a mastermind that's grossly underpriced, but we make nothing on it. So your life gets better. You get people around. We build in a whole infrastructure to help you out, not to help you out, but to create an environment where you can help yourself and other people. You can create a community that helps, and you can help other people. But we're not trying to scale it, or excuse me, we are trying to scale it, but we're trying to. The goal is to get 10,000 members paying an average of $500 a month. That's $60 million a year. And we would like to run it on $10 million a year so we can give $50 million away every year. That is our goal.
That's a pretty good goal.
And currently we are 10% of the way there.
And it's only been around for a few months.
It's only been around for 6 months. So we have 1,000, we have 1,300 members. We need to get to 10,000.
Yeah. I mean, that's happening really, really fast, especially once you take into account exponential growth.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll have exponential growth, but we'll see. We're trying very hard. So that's what I'm doing right now in Maui.
Yeah. I mean, the podcast's good. He already had one that went to the moon.
We've had a couple.
Yeah. He had a couple?
We've had 3 that have done very, very well.
I meant he had a former podcast that went to being like...
The previous podcast was 150 million plus downloads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane.
Insane.
But what do you want to do with content? So like, hey, in a gold rush, are you going to search for the gold, or are you going to sell the shovels?
Yeah.
Like, what's the old saying? Who gets rich in the gold rush? The person who sells the shovels, right? So what are you kind of doing now with...
I am trying my hardest to do something I've never done in my life, which is not make it about me. I'm trying to go there and serve. Eventually, I'd like to have a podcast of my own. But right now, I'm going to build a system. I'm going to build a very efficient system so that, and I'm going to put hopefully people in place that can run it with me so that it's sort of very, very reliable so that I don't have to, spend every day working on it.
Yeah.
And then we'd like to start multiple podcasts, but I'd like to start my own. I'd like to have my own podcast. I think that as much as I wanted to be a real estate investor, I realized along the way, as I've said in this show, I did it not because I love real estate, but because I loved the opportunity that real estate presented when I was doing it. And but now I think the next big opportunity in the world, and I see it maybe uniquely because I'm so close to it, is content production for entrepreneurs.
And is that, so that's what I was talking about. Is that something that you're getting into? Is that...
There's a couple of different fronts on this.
There's
a couple of different fronts on this. There's an educational front. People need to understand what it takes. This is actually not that simple.
Yeah.
Right. It takes a lot of trial and error. It takes a lot of and you have room to grow still, right? You guys are always iterating, trying to get better.
And this is a lot of money also.
It's expensive. It can be expensive. And so I do think there's a place where I can help people reduce the learning burden. The second piece of it is I have an amazingly interesting and entertaining personality, and so that should be on the internet. So I'd like to do a podcast for myself. And then the last piece is community. What's interesting is that there's not that many people that do what I do. Like I met all Ryan's people, all his production people. And I met all Cody Sanchez's production people. And, every time I go to one of these podcast sets, like they got camera people, right? And they are of varying skills, and a lot of these entrepreneurs are falling into very
common pitfalls about how they hire camera people and creatives, and the language of creative and the language of entrepreneur are not the same. And what I found is that nobody wants to learn how to speak each other's language. So there's always the friction barrier there.
And you're someone who can speak both.
I can speak both languages very fluently, and that is not that common because I'm actually an entrepreneur first. And I'm actually not a natural creative. I'm an analytic. So, but I'm people. I'm good at people. I'm a very good communicator. So for all those reasons, I definitely think that we're part of a content revolution. Everybody sort of knows it, but it's coming fast. And in some weird ways, even though it like seems obvious, right? It's not obvious. There's like 20 people that do what I do on planet Earth in America, right? It's like D-Rock, it's Caleb Ralston who works for Alex Scott. There's a couple others. There's not that many. But there will be in 10 years. Every entrepreneur is going to partner with a creative person in a way that it's never been done before.
Do you think that's one of the new job classes that's just going to skyrocket? Of if someone was an 18-year-old kid right now, would you tell them to go buy a camera? What would that be? Go take pictures of entrepreneurs. What would you?
I think what's going to happen is, look, if you think that if you want to be a camera person, it's the same thing. If you just think there's money in it and you don't actually want to take pictures or create stories, then no, absolutely not. Run for the hills. It's a lot of work, right? And it's wildly I'm in a very lucky position, and it's because I did not do it for money. I did it because I love it. I said on a podcast a few weeks ago, actually, I was like, I actually wanted to be an entrepreneur, and then the universe put a camera in my hand, and now I don't get a choice.
Yeah.
I didn't choose. I didn't choose the camera life. The camera life chose me. I didn't choose.
Same thing with me in the thug life.
Yeah. So if you're a creative and you're struggling to make money, what most people normally do is they go into weddings because that's where all the money is. That you're going to see that shift. That people are going to bail. And actually, the other one, the hidden pool of talent and resources, and I have not said this on a podcast ever before yet, is in churches. Because they pay production, churches have the biggest productions. They spend the biggest production budget more than Hollywood across the United States. Churches spend all the money that like equipment sales places.
Really?
Yeah. And the people who run all that production, they do big, complex, like a lot of production, and they get paid nothing because it's churches. So those people are
that's a way to find something.
A lot of them are going to bail and they're going to go to the entrepreneur. And the same thing with weddings. It's high production. It's a lot of storytelling, but it's like when you go weddings, it's like, guess what? Most people only get married once. And if they get married twice, they don't spend that much on the videographer for the second wedding. So how about instead of charging $8,000 for a wedding, how about you charge $5,000 a month and you have one client instead of always being on the.
And to kind of say what I look for. So, when I'm putting things out there, I want to grow. I want to be, and then also I make so much money in my other business that I'm not trying to spend too much time and effort on this, right? So I want someone else to take the problems off my plate. It's not that I'm a lazy person. It's that my time is all spent doing something else.
Sure, of course.
Right? But everybody wants to get the most for nothing. If I had a camera person or there was someone in the camera world who had business sense to say, hey, here is the way that we could get it in front of the most people for the least amount of money with the best quality. And here's like the analytics. And if somebody could package that and give it to entrepreneurs and then say, hey, here's how you can get your product out there, because that is the future, right? I mean, how realtors get all their business is social media. Even if you don't have a podcast, you have to put out a reasonable amount of content and then have it scheduled and have it produced and have it put out and develop these systems for people who maybe their only skill is that they know how to sell. A lot of realtors out there, so there's a lot of money in real estate, especially if you're in a market like California, Miami, Chicago, where house prices are over $600,000, right? Every single sale that they do is at least $15,000 their commission. So it makes sense for them to put out money for advertising, right? It's not Ohio where every sale is like $3,000 that they're getting.
Right. Everybody's gonna have to do content, or they're gonna get left in the dust.
If someone knew how to take what they do, say, hey, we could just film all these things over a course of 4 hours, and I can schedule the release times for you so that it releases throughout the week. It's the best marketing that there is.
Yep.
But you need a camera person. It's rare for a camera person to have a business sense because they're all creatives.
That's what I'm saying. It's very hard.
Yeah.
And what happens, what I experience most, and I don't know if you had anybody before Marlon, what a guy like you will do, well, you'll make two mistakes. One, you'll hire somebody cheap. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurs, they're going to hire somebody cheap. They're going to hire a guy for, nothing. $15 an hour. Nothing, right? I'll give you $500 for the day, not understanding what it actually takes to create all the content. So the first they underprice. Okay, fine. That's fine. And you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money and waste it either. So I understand why people that make that mistake. The second thing they do is they go, like you said, I know what I'm doing. I don't have time to do the creative stuff. So they hire a camera person, and the camera person shows up and says, "What do you want me to film?" Mm-hmm. And then you go, "I don't know. I thought you'd know."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
Also, just to kind of, for anybody who would be a cameraman out there, the one thing that I would like to put across, because you're only seeing it from your perspective, there is decision fatigue for anyone who is running a business. So when you're like, hey, how much for the tile on this? When are we going to get tile at this property? When are we doing landscaping at this property? HOA is finding us actively on this property. When are we getting on this one on market? When are we closing on this one? There's so many decisions going on through the day that if you could take decisions off their plate, like you're not doing, if you're in the normal world, when I was a dealer working at the Wynn, if I had opinion, I was the asshole, right? They don't want my opinion. Matter of fact, if I told my boss something to make it better, I get in trouble, right? Even if I'm right, I'm wrong, because whatever they say is right, whatever I say is wrong. If you could come in and say, hey, let's say you're a realtor out there, let's film this in front of one of your properties. Let's film this here. And I just saw these 3 TikToks by other realtors. Let's just kind of take what they said, switch it a little bit, and then make it more like you. And I already have a plan because I know who you are.
So strategy is a big part of it.
Strategy, psychology, people, and...
Yeah. It's a lot. But what happens is your position is right. You go, I don't really want to think about this. I just want to know. I want the person to show up and just do it.
Yeah.
Well... and this is my problem. This is sort of the problem. The camera person's like, I know how to use the camera, but like, I don't know what you need. Mm-hmm. So both sides, very, very few times, they're not learning each other's language, right? And then how do you know what a good camera person is?
I don't.
Right. They can show up. I know. I got a kid who lives in.
The proof is in their history if they have one.
Right. Well, but usually they're bad at business. They're bad at marketing themselves. And a lot of creatives, they want to create. They don't want to sell. So like, I have a guy who lives in Maui with me. Absolute artist. Right? Wildly talented. He's not on Instagram for no reason. He's a guy just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Right? And he shows up with a $36,000 red camera. Right? He's 21. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he's got the goods. Right? But do you know the difference between a red camera and a Sony a6500? No. Right? And so you get into this weird world where the business people, and this is the hard part actually, the business people, they need very talented people. Mm-hmm. They don't need cheap people. But they don't want to, right? Do you want to hire I don't know what you pay, Marlon. I don't want to, this is going to get weird, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to hire somebody for $60,000 a year to do it? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And even then, what is, are they, like, even if you did that and they showed up and they did some work, it's like, are they actually worth 60? Are you underpaying them? Are you overpaying them?
Yeah.
It's hard to know, right?
Well, you just had an AI program that is doing everything for...
I just saved my company $3,300 a year, $3,300 a month today on AI. Yeah. So a lot of things are changing very quickly. Mm-hmm. What can't change is what's interesting about this whole thing, and my favorite part, which is why I really want to start now because I'm already way behind the curve, is the one thing that will not get outsourced. It will not get democratized. It will not, it will be the most valuable thing is individual personalities. The production will almost go to zero. The production will be so easy. You'll have a little, in 10 years, you'll have a little drone. You're going to fly it. You're just going to launch it. It's going to fly right in front of you and it'll stay right in front of you. And you can just walk and talk. You don't have to do anything and it'll send that right to Instagram. It'll be done for you. It'll be perfect. You won't need a person. But if you're boring, you're sunk.
Yeah.
And nobody can be you but you.
And I think a lot of camera people should be hybrids of camera person / coach. Just because you're the person taking the photos doesn't mean that you can't coach them with what to do and what to say and how to say it.
100%. Everybody needs that. Right. And that's a lot of what I do. The first thing I tell people on cameras, you should know this as a host now, as on camera, is the camera is 2-dimensional. So it eats 15% of your body language. So when you're on camera, what you really want to do is overact, because this looks normal on camera.
See, I didn't know that.
Right. This looks extremely boring. So what you really want to do is overact as much as possible. You want to use your inflection. You want to get excited. You want a movement. It looks normal on camera. It doesn't feel normal.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen my Instagram?
It feels crazy.
Let me tell you something. And I do all my little moves. Like, I'm always in and out. I'm moving around. I'm yelling. And it's like, that looks fun. It looks normal. It doesn't look insane.
Yeah.
But it feels insane when I'm making it.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to overdo it.
You have to overdo it. Now, this is a little bit, this vibe right here is, we're in this big room, so that sort of changes things. But I wonder, what we need is you need to like have music on.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
During a podcast?
Yeah. I don't know. But
Get some flashing lights.
yeah, some flashing lights would be good. But I mean, honestly, it's just a matter of like, it's practice. Right?
Starting a party.
You got to bring the energy up. We got to bring the energy up. Yeah. But those are the things that people don't know. That's things that people don't know. Your body language, like, you're not a 3-dimensional character on the podcast. You're a 2-dimensional character. So you have to overact.
Yes.
Right. So
but that's something that I'm not really paying attention to.
Right.
Because the only thing I'm paying attention to is my own fucking properties. Because I got my own problems.
Sure. Also, I'm really good at doing things like, because I know the business, especially real estate, when, like, oh, we're going to do this and that, when people dialogue, I'm like, yeah, don't say that. That doesn't sound good. Say something else. Say it this way. And that makes me very valuable.
And if I could kind of say for the new person starting out there, go after entrepreneurs. They have the money.
Entrepreneurs have the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't start with your friend who's 18. They're going to fucking do
Go
things
work for an entrepreneur for
Call
free.
of Duty or League of Legends or something.
It's the same as every business. Go work for the entrepreneur, do it for free, and you'll become, as soon as you're invaluable, you can set your rate.
Yeah.
But it is a growing market. So like, it is a fast growing market. So you have got to be good.
Yeah. Get in fast. I think this is only going to get better.
It's coming fast. It's coming fast.
I haven't heard of any person in the world having a podcast studio. Well, I've heard of individuals having it, but I've never heard of other people renting it out until this year. And then this year is when there's 3 that pop up, and they're renting them out for like $350 each. Now, $350 an hour.
Yep.
And like a minimum of 2 hours. But they have all the cameras there.
Yep.
That cost like $15,000 with lights, with background, with everything. They produce it. They make it look dope. But that's a huge business opportunity for people.
Yeah, the content business is coming. And the cameras and stuff are cheap. They're so high quality. You have to know how to use them.
They're not cheap, bro.
You got cheap ones.
For an 18-year-old kid?
Yeah, for an 18-year-old kid, yeah.
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 For an 18-year-old kid starting off, that's not cheap.
Yeah. An 18-year-old kid, you know what? You'd be astounded what you can do with a cell phone.
Yeah. And it looks more authentic.
Yeah. If an 18-year-old kid came to you right now and said, hey, let me just follow you around for 3 days and I'll give you 100 reels and I'll use my cell phone and, you give me $500, you'd be like, yeah, let's try it.
And 100 reels, goddamn.
Yeah, 100 reels is a lot. But if somebody could give 5...
If he came up to you and had a list and just said, hey...
great.
If someone wants to have me as a customer, nobody offers to work for free.
Right.
Like, hey, let me just do this. Let me show you that I'm worth it.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, what if he came up and he said, I will make 100 reels over 3 days, right? That's 33 a day. You can do that in 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
And on a cell phone. And what he would do is he'd come to you with a list. Here's the 50 reels or 100 reels we're going to make. Here's how to buy my first rental property. Let me talk about real estate in Las Vegas. Let me tell you about my worst flip. Let me tell you about the thing I do at every flip. Let me tell you 10 secrets. Like, dude, I can riff them off.
Yeah.
And they don't all have to be great, but it's like, dude, you could use 100 reels. That's 3 a day for a month.
Yeah.
For $500, that's a steal.
Yeah.
And some kid could do it in 6 hours with a cell phone.
Yeah.
Right. And if he did a good job, he'd be like, okay, the next time it's $1,500. And if he did a good job, he'd be like, yeah, sure. because that's a month of content.
If someone can prove it, and then coming from my perspective, like you said, 60,000. Like, what if they don't? What if they suck? Like, they might be fired by next week. They might be fired by 2 weeks. If I'm going to pay a price like that, you have to be good with proof of concept, with knowledge that you're worth it.
You can start with like the hustle mentality. Is simply like, you need content. How come? Hey Jay, how come you're not on the internet? I have a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone. I have a cell phone, and you have flip properties.
Yeah.
You have everything you need. The only thing you need now is a little bit of hustle, right? And somebody could come to you right now. I guarantee it. If somebody came to you and said, I will make 100, it's underpriced, right? I'll give you 100 reels. We'll work together for 3 days, 2 hours a day. We'll go to some of these properties. I saw you all week. You have the time. You have the time. You could do that. And if it was making content for your own company, you'd be like, yeah, let's try it.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
So obviously you're not getting paid 60 grand a year. What's your package for like Brandon Turner?
I'm not going to tell you my salary, but it's...
No. I'm saying like, what's your package? Like, what does it include? Like, as far as like, what is it that you're actually providing besides?
I'm building the best looking podcast on the internet.
Well, I mean, so am I, but I mean, but what is what are you what else do you provide aside from making the best looking podcast on the internet?
Well, I started the Better Life Tribe with Matt. You know, we built the tribe, we built the community from the ground up. We also do all the events. We do the content for all the events. We do some solo content with Brandon. Anytime we need to do a promo for ODC, I've gone to a couple of their properties and bought and done promos to send to the ODC investors. I film a lot of testimonials from our tribe members. And I'm going to launch a second podcast.
And it's not that you do that. You're probably getting it out of the testimonials, right? You're getting them to open up on camera. You're
Nobody wants to be on camera.
You're getting them to...
the amount of people that you stick a camera in their face and they're actually confident and good
Very few.
is like, I'd be surprised if it was 5%.
Your skill set isn't just a camera person. You are the director.
Yeah. 100%.
You're a director and skills, and you can tell Brandon what to do, even though his net worth is, probably 100 times more, possibly.
Yeah, probably more than that.
Yeah.
And that's video, photography, and editing.
Yeah.
You do all of it.
Yeah, I can do everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, now my job, honestly, is hiring people to do all of it so that we can scale.
Do you have a team?
I have 3 people.
And what are their responsibilities?
One does all our copy, all our social posting, all our like repurposing of existing content. Yeah. Some editing, some light editing. One guy does all the podcast long form editing, which I don't want to get into the details, but they'll
I just don't imagine you like making reels. I feel like you don't have the
no. And AI is starting to do that pretty good.
Yeah.
Right. Which is going to mean everybody's going to have reels. So the thing that's going to stand out is original content. So now my goal is, how do we get on set and make not just a good looking podcast, because we got that down. How do we get great guests? And how do we prepare for our podcast so well so that when I'm done, I know I have clips that are punchy and designed for the internet, but it still sound organic.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of other things we're going to do. We're trying to do basically little sizzle reels that advertise podcast episodes. And there's a lot, dude. There's a lot. And we are trying to grab attention on the internet, and we're trying to do it. I am trying to be at the bleeding edge forefront of content growth. And so some of that is strategy. Some of that is understanding the algorithm. Some of that is experimentation. Some of that is visual. Some of that is
just skill set of knowing the lights.
The visual, like understanding, but also some of it is like, who's popular on the internet, who tells good stories. Cody Sanchez was a great episode. David Green's a great episode. And sometimes you get people like Peter Awad, who I have never heard of, but he's our best episode yet.
Wow.
The clips just went bananas.
Interesting.
So it's an interesting moment. So I'm spending my, when you said like, what are my ambitions or what am I trying to do, is I'm trying to make Brandon as famous as I possibly can and build a system around it so that it does not live and die by me.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to humble myself and focus on him. And then if I build the system correctly, I can insert myself later. But right now, if you want to be good, this is not a side gig. I mean, it can be a side gig. It should be at least everybody's side gig, like making content. But if you want to be world class, people are working very hard.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Pineda's a machine. You got to outwork Pineda and be more interesting than him.
But how many Pinedas are out there, you think?
A lot.
Yeah? Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
It's pretty rare.
How many?
I think it's pretty rare. In major cities, you see it. I don't think someone would even grow enough in Fayetteville. I think they.
Who's a
Well, what do you mean by
Pineda?
Pineda? A person with...
person like Pineda that's like, first of all, like super successful and interested in like promoting content.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, Lewis Howes is way bigger than Pineda. Yeah. Chris Williamson is way bigger than Pineda.
Well, I'm just like an overview number. I mean, obviously, we're not going to rattle them off.
Yeah, I don't know.
Here,
Yeah.
but
But still,
that's a huge.
I mean,
country.
every single day I find somebody on the internet that has a couple of million subscribers.
mm-hmm.
I feel like isn't it like
There's
aside
levels
from
to
the-
subscribers.
Yeah, aside from the real estate space, like what other entrepreneur you're gonna follow around with a camera? I'm just.
I don't know.
curious.
Brandon's no longer in the... I mean, we're not doing real estate content. Gary V.
And
That's how it
Hermosi.
started, by the way. Gary V. He's not a real estate guy.
Yeah.
Hermosi's not a real estate guy.
But Gary
Cody's
V's
not a real
whole-
estate guy.
Gary V's whole content is post more content.
Yeah, well, he's a marketing guy.
Yeah.
Well, he was also way ahead of it. He knew he was ahead of it, and he didn't realize how far ahead of it he was.
Yeah.
He is, and then the guy who works for him, D-Rock, is the one. He's the one that started what I do. And then the guy he hired, Caleb Ralston, is now Alex Hormozi's number one guy.
And then somebody who was a pioneer in the space is Ty Lopez. But I
Right.
don't know what he's doing now.
No, right. But also there's a lot of people like that do content, and then they find out. We just did an interview with a guy named Jefferson Bethke, who ended up getting a couple million followers on YouTube, a couple million followers on Instagram, wrote a couple books, right? And he's like, I got the fame, and then I found out that there's no end to wanting more. So I gave it up. And so now he's just like, he just doesn't, right? So I think you have to, like Ty Lopez, like he accomplished it,
Yeah.
right? There is no, again, what flame dies when you feed it. There is nothing at the bottom of the bottle.
What's the perfect amount of fame for someone to have?
None.
None?
That'd be perfect. Yeah.
Do you truly believe that?
I'm still going to try to chase it, but to my own peril. Yeah. I mean,
You're in the fame business.
Yeah.
If you really
yeah.
believe that.
I don't think it's healthy for anybody.
You'd be out of business.
Not for anybody. And let me push back a little bit. So when I take a look at who has the best fame in the whole entire world, I say it's Naval Ravikant. To where I don't think he's getting harassed. I think he could walk through an airport. I think that if he went and ate at a Chili's, no one would know who he is. But if he ate at a 5-star restaurant at the Wynn, then people would know who he is.
I don't even know what he looks like.
I think Naval Ravikant.
He didn't
would
have a face on
be-
Twitter.
Yeah, he didn't even have a face on Twitter. I think.
Well, there's lots of people like that. I mean, would you
Naval
recognize?
Ravikant's-
Do you think Ray Dalio can go in public?
He might just blend in as an average old guy these days.
I think so.
Yeah.
All old people start to blend in.
Yeah.
But I think with Naval,
You think
it's-
Taleb could go places?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, he could.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the perfect level to where everyone who knows who he is high level. And I think all the people who know who Naval Ravikant is are people who do business. So you want fame enough to where when all the other wholesalers in town know who I am, and then I make an offer on their property, they're way more likely to accept me than someone else.
So I will say, let's be specific here. I think there's a difference between fame and attention. Like it's good to, it's healthy. It's valuable to command attention, right? Now, does that come with fame? Maybe they're.
I'm sure that being Justin Bieber has a lot of devils, right? But being Naval Ravikant, how much downside could there be?
Sure.
Or how much downside could
Right.
Nassim Taleb have? But the right people know who he is.
Right. But also, yeah, I mean, Taleb doesn't, I don't know. I can't imagine. I don't know what he's doing for business anymore. He's made all his money. He doesn't need any more money. Now, again, I mean, he's so healthy about it. He's like, he literally says, he's like, I made the fuck you money. And now I say no to interviews. What do I need an interview for? I don't care.
Yeah.
That's the healthiest way to be. So I look at fame and I say, what's the perfect amount of fame? The perfect amount is probably none. If you had all the money, like the fame, it's like, sure, it's enticing, but I look at people, I know people that have fame, and I have deep conversations with them, and all of them are insecure about, look at our friend Spencer. Mm-hmm. Is fame doing him any favors? Only when it's up, because then it makes more money.
Yeah. When it's down, he gets very...
Right. It's really, always going to go down. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kim Kardashian will be forgotten one day. Look at Kanye.
Yeah.
Your fame is everybody's going to pass. Everybody's Kevin Spacey.
That one hit.
Right?
Yeah.
Like everybody is going to everybody's going to peak and then fall.
Oh, he's making a comeback, I think.
That doesn't mean...
But I'm saying even Ryan Pineda said it the other day. He's like, I was a baseball player. I was winning. I loved it. And then I got kicked off and I was devastated because who am I now?
Yeah.
That's not even fame. That's just your identity. The problem with fame is it becomes your identity. And you're like, I'm famous. People recognize me.
But if it's not your identity, like I don't think that Tim Duncan has any problem with where he's at right now because he was never obsessed with the fame.
But he can't walk like in a mall and not get like approached for sure.
Okay, I mean, maybe being 6'11" helps you stand out. Yeah. But at the same time, I think that there's certain people who, there's certain people who are famous where if it fluctuates a little bit, it's not like they care, you know? They're like, I already did it. I sat with this one singer. I'm not going to name her name, but she was a massive R&B singer in the 90s and late 80s. And I was going to help her buy some real estate in Las Vegas, right? So I was talking to her about all the hits that she had.
Talking to the mic,
bro. Talking to the mic? Yeah. Okay. I was talking to her about all the hits that she had. And she's like, she doesn't want to do anything where she can, like, when we ate at a restaurant, she had her back turned towards the entrance so that no one could see her. She doesn't want to do things where her name could be out. She tries to hide her name in the LLCs when she buys real estate. She doesn't want to be known. She doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But she had all the fame and she felt it.
Right. So I don't know, dude. I can't speak for everybody. Yeah.
She had the
fame is enticing. But so is every vice. Yeah. They all seem exciting. But do I think that they're healthy for people? I can't imagine that it does. I can't imagine that it's a net good for most people. I think it's probably net negative.
I agree with you.
I think
it's probably fun on the way up, and then it's always horrible on the way down.
Well, especially if you're like at a pinnacle and then you lose it, and then you're constantly chasing it, then you just alienate everybody.
This is strippers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're like, I'm hot. I'm gonna go get all this attention, and then slowly but surely they're like, now I need to go to the strip club to get validation, and now I didn't make any money, and now narrows my self-esteem. Mm-hmm. Right? You got it's attention, right? I got the attention, and then it's the hedonic treadmill.
Yeah,
100%.
But, anyways, hey, Alex, where can people reach you?
I like Threads.
Threads?
I'm on Threads.
I didn't start my account yet. I got to start that.
Yeah, I'm number 1 million.
What is your Threads?
Alex Scott Felice. Threads, Instagram is where you can find me most. If you want to see my work, you can go to lifeandlens.media.
Lifeandlens.media, and on both Instagram and on Threads, you're Alex Scott Felice.
The one and only.
The one and only. Alex, you're one of my best friends in Las Vegas and on this planet. I'm happy you're on the show.
Thank you, my dude. Appreciate you.
Yes.